Welcome to Company Showcase, an advertising feature on HowStreet.com.
I'm Jim Goddard. We're speaking with Rainy Mountain Royalty CEO and President Doug Mason and the Vice President of Exploration, Bob Middleton. Doug, what do you have to tell us today?
Well, hi, Jim. Yes, we've just recently completed a work program on our Brunswick property in Ontario. We're very excited about the chemistry and mineralization we've discovered to date. We conducted a rights offering for the company on our last interview about 4 or 5 months ago, raised about $1.5 million, so will enable us to go and do some early exploration work on a property. Normally, Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp is a project generating company. We prepare properties primarily in Ontario region to get them drill ready for joint venture partners. And we currently have a number of joint venture partner properties and 100% owned properties looking for partners that we have a substantial interest in, some of them quite advanced in terms of exploration. So that's normally our MO, but on this particular latest acquisition, the Brunswick property in Ontario, we got so excited about the amount of mineralization on the claim block that we decided to do a good program ourselves before joint venturing it out. And to that end, Mr. Bob Middleton, who's our QP and VP Exploration, and one of the foremost geophysicists in Canada, I might add, also has the individual that discovered the Bell Creek mine back in the 70s. He sees a lot of the same kind of mineralization that led him to the discovery of that mine. So I'll let Mr. Middleton give you a little bit more technical information on what we've discovered so far on the preliminary program on the Brunswick property. So over to you, Mr. Bob Middleton.
Yes, we've just done a news release, and we're explaining the fact that there was quite a delay in receiving the assays from the labs because there's a huge voluminous volume coming in from Quebec to swamp all the labs. Now we have all the assays in hand. We were able to announce that we've made a new discovery on surface in a pyrite volcanic tuff horizon of 6.6 grams. That's on an IP anomaly, induced polarization geophysical anomaly that's 900 meters long. And we actually have never drilled a hole in this or have done any sampling on it. So we intend to proceed with a follow-up program to do trenching and sampling of that zone, then, of course, drilling afterwards. But this particular zone is offset onto the eastern part of the property. There's two grids. There's an east grid and a west grid. And both sides have now been covered with induced polarization surveys, which detects the pyrite that's associated with the gold mineralization. We've drilled 6 holes on the west grid, and in those holes we've seen low gold values. However, every one of the horizons, the 4 zones that we tested, had very anomalous arsenic anomalies, which are often associated with gold deposits, both in Timmins and Red Lake and Yellowknife, etc., etc. And in addition, we have antimony, which is also associated with the Hemlo deposit, as showing up in our drill cores. So we know we're very close to a gold deposit on the west grid. On the east grid, we drilled our very first holes. By the way, this is a 6-mile-long property, and there was never a drill hole in this whole township. So we're the first ones to actually work here. In the past, there was no access to this area. And we now have the lumber road access, so we can drive to these sites. So on the east side, we have drilled a hole that had both the arsenic and anomalous gold numbers, which reminded me very much of one of my holes I drilled in 1979 that discovered the Bell Creek mine. It's, in fact, the hole that led us to the actual discovery. So we intend to do step-out drill holes to that hole number 4 on the east grid to follow up on the intersection that we've got. We've also discovered another new shear zone that looks promising that we're going to drill and do some trenching on, and also look for the offset of this 6.5 gram gold discovery we made on the west grid, this fault offset, and reappears on the east grid. So there's a lot going on, and we'll be I'm flying back from Vancouver tomorrow to go back to the property, which is 140 kilometers south of Timmins, which is the biggest gold camp in actually Canada. So we're going to continue there. The prospector working with me is Mike Tremblay, who's the one that found the Borden deposit that was sold to Goldcorp for $555 million. And we think we have a similar setting, but it's less metamorphosis. It's more like the Bell Creek mine in Timmins that I worked on back in 1979 before the company I was with, Rosario, was taken over by Amax, which then became the mine that started Kinross, and is more recently known as the Lakeshore mine.
So, Bob, where exactly is all this activity taking place? I know you described it being near Timmins. Is that where it is?
Yes, right. We're on just east of Highway 144. That's the main highway that links Timmins to Sudbury. So we're halfway between Timmins and Sudbury. We're on a narrow piece of greenstone belt that it starts off in Kirkland Lake and comes southwest through Matachewan, where Orico has a mine. And of course, Kirkland Lake is Kirkland Lake Gold, and that structure continues onward and becomes the Rideout Fault that goes through our property. And then west of us, on the west side of Highway 144, a company called IM Gold are developing a very large deposit called the Chester. And they've recently had Sumitomo of Japan come in and buy a 1/3 interest for $196 million. So it's kind of a hot neighborhood right now. That structure then continues westward to the Borden discovery that I mentioned earlier. So we're 140 kilometers by highway south of Timmins. We're within driving distance of 4 mills. Goldcorp has a mill in Timmins. Lakeshore, which is now Tahoe, has a mill in Timmins. Kirkland Lake Gold has a mill in Kirkland Lake. And Alamos, who took over Orico, has a mill in Matachewan, and that's the closest mill to us. And of course, the fifth major is IM Gold, 12 miles to our west, developing this very large, I think it's a 4 to 8 million ounce deposit that Sumitomo's just invested in.
Bob, what can you tell our new listeners about Rainy Mountain Royalty?
The history of it, it was a company called East West that merged with the Capital Pool called Rainy Mountain, and the Capital Pool consisted of Bob Buchan, the chairman of Kinross, Chan Buckland, who had Boulder Capital, and that merged now to become Haywood, Hank Chuck, his geologist friend, and Ed Yukowski. So we merged that company a number of years ago to work on other properties in Ontario. It was a very tight share structure when we refinanced last fall of only 14 million shares. We raised over $3 million, and we have a substantial cash position still in the bank, and are proceeding with the Brunswick property as our main flagship gold property. We have a second gold property in the Thunder Bay area, west of Thunder Bay, in a district called Shabandawan. And adjacent to us, West Dome Gold Mines has a $5 million drill program drilling off a 3 million ounce deposit on a structure that continues into our Powell property that we own 100% of. So we intend to do a little bit of work on Powell as we're proceeding with Brunswick, but the main focus is the Brunswick project.
Bob, what platforms is Rainy Mountain traded on?
We trade on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol RMO, and we also trade in Frankfurt on a symbol called E for Echo, K for King, 7, N as in Nancy, dash, F as in Fred, S as in Fred.
And how can people contact your company?
The number here in Vancouver is area code 604-922-2030, and I think it's extension 1 for investor relations. Clive will answer the phone here. I am in an office in Thunder Bay, so I'm close to all our projects, and I can drive to them, of course, and I don't have to fly there. I have a cell number, which is area code 289-952-3695, and an office, which has a recorder on it. It's area code 807-623-3824.
Thanks, Bob. Doug, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, thank you, Jim. That was a pretty good summary of Mr. Middleton and let you know why we're so excited about the property.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for the update.
Thanks very much for having us, Jim.
My guests have been Doug Mason, CEO and President of Rainy Mountain Royalty, and his Vice President of Operations, Bob Middleton. I'm Jim Goddard. We were speaking on July 17th.
Comments made on Company Showcase are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at howstreet.com. Company Showcase is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.